Hello everyone, hopefully an okay editor 357 here, and today we're talking politics, and the way I spell politics is VISUAL space NOVELS. So we're covering visual novels. I'm sorry, that was dumb. Anyways, for today's video, as you can tell by the title of the video, we will be playing through the demo to a visual novel called Netghost, made by Dragonfire Studios. Dragonfire Studios reached out to me, asked me if I'd be interested in covering this visual novel on my channel, and the moment I watched the trailer, I was hooked right away. I'm like a huge sucker for like thriller, like crime drama type stories, and this looks like that at its finest. Like the trailer hooked me right away. The only thing I can compare it to is when I first saw the trailer to Lucid 9, which is still one of my favorite visual novels. Really need to get that sequel though. But yeah, I'm going to read you the plot synopsis real quick, and we're going to hop right into it. They're currently doing a Kickstarter for this game. I have a pretty good feeling I'm going to be donating to this Kickstarter, but I want to play through the demo first, make sure, you know, what we have so far lives up to my expectations, which are pretty high because it looks really good. I'll link the Kickstarter, the website, and hell, I'll even link the trailer in the description. I really want to see this visual novel do well. So let me read the plot synopsis real quick from their website. Alright. Netghost story. Ian Newfield is a talented gray hat hacker who works as a high-ranking cybersecurity engineer at Daikon Industries, an information technology company that is part of a shadowy branch of a larger conglomerate of corporations. His job is to type in the letters and numbers that make up the encryption for top secret software his company is hired to guard, details of which he knows nothing about. Ian basks in a frail sense of financial security. That is, until he is told by his boss that their product was cracked and posted anonymously online. Now, Ian is tasked with finding the leaker among his peers by using any method at his disposal. In a workplace where anyone from his fellow coders to the janitor of the building is a suspect. Meanwhile, Ian's sister, Vivi, is confined to a hospital bed for years now, ill from a bone-wasting disease, and Ian works overtime to cover all her expenses and keep her happy. Despite his generous salary at Daikon, their situation has them living from paycheck to paycheck, and their objective of going for an expensive, experimental treatment for Vivi seems way out of reach. With Ian's earnest effort to uncover the elusive Daikon leaker, his life and career begin to converge with the criminal underworld of Tri-State City. As fate would have it, opportunities rise for Ian to cut corners and make big money that could, perhaps, help find a cure for his sister. An age-old question is brought forth. Does crime pay? And then we have, like a character list. I'm not going to go through all of it, but I read it all earlier. It's very interesting. I highly recommend. The website's very appealing, too. Like, they designed it really interestingly. But yeah, that's the plot synopsis. It just sounds so interesting. The fact that there's, like, a hacker, I hate using those words, hacker among the crew, and he has to figure out who it is, so he doesn't know exactly who he can trust, and the whole maybe he's going to cut corners, help his sister, because he has a noble goal in mind, helping his sister, unless choices you make, lead you down a darker path. The whole thing, it really does just sound like my cup of tea. It gives me some very strong G Senju no Mao, the Devil on G String, and Lucid 9 vibes, and I'm here for that. Even the logo is really cool. Netghost with a little spider web. The menu is really just, I don't know, this whole thing is presented so interesting and just gets me so excited. And basically the way your paths branch out, you make choices via emails, kind of like Steins Gate-like, and that'll, take you down certain routes. I heard this on the website. I think they say they do not recommend ignoring emails because it'll probably lead you to bad ends. It just sounds awesome. Like, I'm normally much better at elaborating my thoughts, but I just want to hop right into this. I don't know how much the demo's going to have in terms of variety of choices and stuff like that, or if it's going to be more or less linear, but I'm really looking forward to checking it out and see what this visual novel has to offer. So with all that being said, let's hop into Netghost. Chapter 1, Ladders and Snakes. Hey you. Yes, I'm talking to you. You, whoever you are. My name is Ian Newfield. I live at 37 Allen Street, Palermo Heights, Tri-State, 86572, and I'm a cybersecurity engineer at Daikon Industries. But you may already know that if you found this recording. I think this is how the trailer starts off too, if I remember correctly. In the message that follows, I will speak the truth and nothing but the truth. This is not an admission of guilt. My mind is clear and my faculties are sound. I'm clean of drugs and am not depressed, nor am I suicidal or under psychological pressure. I do not own, nor do I have the license to own any firearms, nor do I know how to use them. This guy's really trying to convince us that he's not, that he has a valuable testimony. I love these sorts of setups, like, like it's set like they're about to tell the story, and it's like, if you found this recording, kind of like the ending to Higurashi Chapter 1 with like the note where it's like, if you're reading this, find the truth. Like, that's so epic to me. A week ago, a chunk of our encrypted data at Daikon Industries was leaked. Data crucial to a highly classified project that may have an effect on world affairs. Several corporate level interest parties and other entities have stakes in this, so this situation is understandably tense. But as per my job description, I am not qualified to know the details of the project. I just make sure it does not fall into the wrong hands. I have copies of logs and files stored in my workplace, here in my house, and in other locations that I'm not going to disclose, set to be uploaded online in the event of my death. I hope this uploading isn't proof of his death. All of it is data that clears me, for leaks of info or any wrongdoing, really. Any encryption I code is airtight, on a closed network, always. I know it wasn't me who leaked this information, so it has to be someone from the office where I work. Someone who exploited their access privileges to find easy ways around the security I and fellow employees maintain. I've been tasked by my boss, Mr. Bauer, CEO of Daikon Industries, with finding out who the thief, who this rogue employee is, and that's what I'll do my best to do. This is for my sister Vivi. If it comes to you ever watching this, it means things have gone badly for me. I'm sorry. Take care. A week ago. The row back. The sun bore down the back of my neck mercilessly. My whole body was sweating in the summer heat. I wished right then that I could get out of this tight suit that I have to wear every day in my job, as per the company policy. I had to look around me at the busy sidewalk. People were headed to work at this time of day, all with the burden of the blazing sun on their necks, just like me. Yet they pressed on. So did I. Daikon Industries, an information technology company and a small branch of a larger, international umbrella corporation, significant in its own way, yet little known or acknowledged by its associates or the world. Like a shadow company, simple employees don't get to see the clients, and I'm never told what it is I'm working to protect. Seems legit. That's fine by me. It means my job as a cybersecurity engineer there is as quiet as can be. Closed network, no threats, no attacks to deal with. I come in contact with some corporate level gems, but that's also fine at the end of the day, somehow, some way. I get paid, and there's air conditioning in the office, which is more than a lot of places can say. Air condition, I mean. I was sitting on my desk chair, coffee at the ready next to my mouse, typing. I wasn't sure how much time had passed since I began, but I wasn't the kind to keep track of time. For me, work was finished when work was finished, not when the time came. I felt at home on this desk. I had been doing this for so long that I had gotten used to all the sounds around me. The people around me, fellow employees, faded into the background, and it was as if I was alone, just me, my desk, and my computer. All cozy. The endless rows of letters and numbers, the mediocre coffee in the plastic cup from the cafe across the street, even the keyboard that felt clunky when compared to the one I had at home. As I typed, I couldn't help it. My consciousness drifted off, and I found myself being very aware of my circumstances, my life. Every day is the same. My job? Simple. For me. I'm on my desktop typing encrypted words and numbers for hours upon hours. Sometimes I email myself when I'm bored. I don't usually stop or take breaks, and often I work overtime. I get sucked in. The screen draws me in. Its spell keeps me there until very late at night sometimes. He's coding the ultimate visual novel. Coding is a world of perfect square logic, a system of unrelenting laws and rules in which I am the absolute master. What I type goes. I give a command and action happens. A leads to B and B to C, so you're the god of your coding world. I wish dealing with my coworkers was just as straightforward. I stopped typing, took a sip of my coffee, and glanced around the office. People are more complicated. A leads to Z with some of them. They know nothing of reason. I try to avoid those. Others, they know of reason and they're just stubborn. That straight up looks like Daru. I just gotta say it. He looks like Daru with more hair. And others are beautiful. I mean, they use reason when it suits them, and don't when it doesn't suit them. That's a peculiar combination. But people are not all bad. I know some of them have a desire to do well, fair and with no shenanigans. I work my best with such types. We don't tolerate no shenanigans here. It's easy to read people when they're off guard, just doing their thing. Every detail in their person, from their clothes to the way they talk, says something about them. You just have to know how to interpret it. Yeah, kind of like the show Psych did. Either way, most of them in this office don't have secrets from me, and I mean that literally, since I have happened upon their work email passwords. I try not to peek, but curiosity gets the best of me sometimes. I guess it's my dirty little secret, and it's nothing compared to some of the other dirty little secrets I found. So I managed to sleep soundly at night. Who knew all their passwords were password? I don't want to know what he's seen on their search histories. I took another sip of my coffee and stood staring blankly at the code on my screen. I was tired as hell, and I was so very often. It felt like sleep was never enough. For a moment, I began missing the days of school when I could get as much sleep as I liked. But in this life, having this kind of job, it wasn't going to happen. My thoughts were interrupted when I noticed someone was standing next to my desk, casting a shadow over me. I turned my head around and looked at the guy weirdly, and then I started hissing like a snake. "Hey Ian," the large man called out. That was Mike Milan, another coder working for the company. He was the type of guy who writes anonymous rants about politics on 5net and spends his weekends inside watching the Neckbeard Squad podcast on YouTube religiously. Sounds lovely. Can't blame him though. I watch that podcast too sometimes. Yeah, if you have a beard, it's required. Well, as the master of the Daikon server, I hid the password of Mike's work email, and I'd taken a glance at his inbox before. He used that same email for his account on YouTube, which led me to find emails that pointed to lengthy, mostly pointless arguments he likes to have in the comments of videos. I checked them every once in a while to amuse myself, laughing at his stupidity. Mike's job was to decrypt outside material brought in by clients, write a first stage sort of temporary shell of a protection, then pass the material on to me. A job harder than most people's in this company, judging from the kind of top secret things that were brought into our care. He was a one-of-a-kind coder, which would explain why he got away with wearing whatever kind of clothes at work he pleased, instead of following the dress code. Now that sweatshirt right there, it screams company dress code. It's beautiful. I'm gonna wear my anime shirts to the restaurant I work at, and I'm just gonna be able to listen. I'm the best in the business. You can't get rid of me, and then they'll be like, no, you're actually horrible at your job, you're fired, and I won't be able to blame them. Hey man, got anything for me? Not this time, he said. Something's come up. I could tell he wasn't joking, so I turned my chair to face him. Mano e mano. What is it? Actually, coder e codo. Coder e coder. He paused for it, giving me a look I rarely saw from him. He never touches the back of his neck. Bauer's asked to see you. Better go talk to him. Well, Bauer better ask me himself. Is it the headman's axe? Should I start looking for a new gig? I was half joking, but seeing him not laugh made me concerned as well. Let's just say I get your computer when you're gone, if you know what I mean. He left without a word. Mike could be awkward at times. I got up from my office desk, the shirt beneath my suit jacket stuck on my chest tightly, and I started to sweat again despite the coolness of the air condition. This could very well be my last day in the office. My thoughts started racing. Where would I go now? What would I do? As I tread through the floors of the offices, my mind on its own went back to my work. I hadn't done anything wrong or out of the ordinary. My code was sound and solid. I made sure it was. Was I just not needed here anymore? But what about your sister? That could not be it either, I thought as I walked into the elevator. I pressed the button and the doors closed, sealing my fate. I had been a model employee. Mr. Bauer himself had hinted so. Then it follows that he wouldn't fire me just like this. At least he would maybe give me a warning. I was having these thoughts even though I didn't even know if anything had truly gone wrong or what it was that my boss wanted to talk about. Perhaps I was getting ahead of myself. The elevator came to a halt, but it wasn't my floor. The doors opened and all of the people that could enter, the person least likely to be working in this office, came in. Hey man, Ken said as he saw me, all happy-like. I composed myself and tried not to show my discomfort at his presence. He pressed the button for the top floor, even though I had already pressed it. Ken was here for more than 6 months, yet the office folks still thought he was the new guy. If I had to say in it, he would be long gone by now. With his attitude, I wouldn't even hire him to begin with, and if that, Yeah, that necklace, like... Just kidding, it looks great on you, Ken. He never respected the job's dress code, and some days he didn't show up to work at all, and looked half the type to be selling watches in some filthy corner downtown, half like the usual Silicon Valley genius that is all too happy to sell your search history and email address for a quick buck. Does anyone respect the dress code here except for you? Are you just a sucker, Ian? I couldn't decide which one it was when I first saw him, and I couldn't decide now. I knew he wasn't exactly a professional since he spent almost all of his time on Google looking for other people's code rather than making his own. Ouch. It sounds like they should just hire the people he's Googling. Also, I really like the music. The background music is really fitting. In hindsight, even professionals do that quite a lot, but he didn't strike me as a professional at any rate. What's good? Ken asked with an unusual glee. Not much, I guess. What are you so happy about? You up for promotion, I say with a dry, tired smile. Is this how you said it? Nah, just business is good, that's all. He was a simple coder, or at least was supposed to be. It was strange to hear him call his job business, but I had a feeling he was referring to something altogether different. Yeah? What type of business? I couldn't help myself to ask. The type of business that's none of your business, he said defensively, and I shrugged. His look and tone almost proved my suspicions. Alright, I said, backing off. Tisk, Ken said in a low voice and exited the elevator. I shook my head and followed him out. I was thankful when I saw him go the other way that I needed to go. Seconds later, I stopped outside the door to Mr. Bauer's office and braced myself before I knocked. I wished with all my strength that all was well and good, for my sake and the sake of my sister who depended on me. Calling it now, Ken is the leaker. Come in, I heard my boss's muffled voice from behind the door. With his permission, I stepped into the CEO's office. We were high above the ground level, so high, in fact, that all anyone could see through the window at first glance were the skyscrapers of Tri-State. A nice view for the top dog of his company to enjoy, to be sure. I spotted Mr. Bauer next to his desk. He was pacing around, talking to his earpiece. He looked at me for a second as if to acknowledge me briefly, and then walked away, continuing on with his conversation. He looks like a delight. I wondered if he was on the phone with his girlfriend, or his wife. I knew Mr. Bauer was married because he was wearing a ring, and that he was a cheater because he wasn't always wearing it. And, of course, because he used his work email to secretly talk to his side lady. Not smart, dude. Oh, I really like the character art in this game, too. Like, all the character sprites are really cool and well drawn. But I try not to let my personal opinion of him interfere with my work, like with much of anybody else in the office. I wasn't exactly a saint either, anyway. I thought it best to be discreet, so I just closed the door behind me and stayed put, while thinking of all the dirt I have on him. He was far enough away from me so I could not hear what he was saying, but the tone of the conversation seemed urgent, and he was making wide gestures as he walked around, as if he wished to coerce the person on the end of the line. I knew that it was one of our clients. I couldn't hear much of what was said. Fixing my tie, I remained quiet until he was done. Newfield, he called out to me before even shutting down the call. Hello, I said, somewhat awkwardly, not knowing what awaited. We have a major crisis on our hands, Mr. Bauer said. I knew right away that he meant it. He never uses the word crisis. I don't even think he knew what it meant until yesterday. What is it, sir? Can I help? Can you? Mr. Bauer asked. He seemed displeased, irate even. A portion of our precious code was leaked. Someone posted it online anonymously. Code from a year ago, so not our oldest segment or the latest. I do think it's a little weird that, like, you know, if a character's speaking, but then it goes to, like, monologue or narration from, like, the main character, Ian, it, like, stays in the in the character's text bubble thing. Like, it still says Mr. Bauer. I do find that a little awkward. Nothing, like, horrible, but I just noticed it. I felt my tie choking me all of a sudden. No way, impossible, I thought. And I'm not one to use that word lightly. So I'm going to save before we get the famous jump out the window option, because that better be an option in here, Dragonfire Studios, why wouldn't it be? I had been working on its encryption on a closed network day and night for years. Can't be, I finally said, my brow sweating, my shirt sticking to my chest, mom's spaghetti flying in through the window. We've done 5 times the amount of what can be done about the product's security with the resources and time provided, as I've documented in my reports. What we're looking after is more fortified than certain bank vaults, if you can believe that, sir. I almost added that the product, whatever it was, better be worth the amount of money tossed into its security if it's so heavily guarded, but that wasn't something to share with your boss, as long as the hand kept feeding, right? Well, he might not be feeding for long. I know Mr. Bauer shouted. I know, he paused inside. We found components of it on the dark web. Whoever did this decrypted the thing as well. Decrypted it, I said dubiously, in a hushed tone. All of its strata? Yeah, all of its layers and what have you, which means they've been at it for some time. Listen, Newfield, don't look for it. Forget the data is available out there, and our clients will do the rest. Make sure it's wiped clean off of any of the sites it appears in. They're already frothing at the mouth over the leak. If we had an employee of ours have a look over there and learn something they shouldn't, heads would roll. In fact, I'm surprised heads haven't rolled already. That's the most I can roll, buddy. Sorry. I tried to calm myself and think of ways this could have happened. I covered my mouth with my hand, glancing out the window, thinking. After collecting my thoughts, I spoke. Sir, if we were hacked, I would know it in an instant, but I was never aware of anything like it. Everything was fine when I left my desk a few minutes ago. My boss nodded seriously. I know, he said, yet again. He must have reached the same conclusion I was about to reach. Which means, I speculated, we weren't hacked and somebody got to it from the inside. I know this company's full of snakes, so that's no surprise. And there's heat all over our products, Mr. Barr said, then ordered me in a brisk manner. You're tasked with security, so go do your job, and let me be clear. I don't care how you do it or what methods you use. Just find out. It's fair. Plot twist, it's Mr. Bauer. Everyone's the leak. Everyone's the leak but Ian. He's too good for that. I stopped to think of the implications of this. Mr. Bauer looked displeased when he noticed my hesitation. Do I have to spell it out? He rasped. Hack them if you have to. I gave him a tentative look. It wasn't like I'd never hacked anyone before, but only when I knew it was completely safe and that no one would be harmed in the process. Like when I hijacked that one person's life support and turned it off. Life support is more of a suggestion than anything else. But this whole ordeal reeked of legal trouble. I thought I should consider other options first, but I knew it wouldn't change a thing with Mr. Bauer. I'm probably saying his name so wrong, and I apologize. I assume we can't get the police involved? What are you, nuts? We tell the police our clients learn of it, and we're done. Done! He looks really scared there. No, this has to be solved internally. Our company's reputation depends on it. Right, of course, sir. I had no choice but to agree. I will find them. I promise, as the pride of my work depended on it, and also my paycheck. A quick moment of silence followed, and it looked like the conversation was done. I nearly headed out the door just then, relieved that I'd walked out of this office, still with my job, but a thought that occurred to me made me stop and turn to face my boss. Do you know of any side chicks that you are not seeing? I am very lonely. Sir, how come you don't think it was me? He was turning to his, Oh, okay. I thought that was him speaking, but that's narration again. He was turning to his desk, but he paused and looked at me. You, he said, incredulous. You don't have the guts for it. Well, screw you, boss. After we solve this, I'm going to hack again and leak our code, just to show you that I do have the guts for it. That's actually comforting, I found myself thinking as I turned to leave. At least he doesn't think it was me. A Newfield, the boss said, don't tell a living soul about anything we talked about. I was sitting on my desk sweating. Hot on the inside, but hot on the outside. I'm just a hot person. Hot on the inside, but cold on the outside, thanks to the air condition. An awful feeling. But another, uglier feeling nested inside me. Anxiety. When I returned to my computer, I'd almost opened the Turnip browser, wanting to take a small peek at the leaks on the dark web, but my other concerns prevailed for now, and I would be an award-winning idiot if I did this at work. Besides, I had to take safety measures before doing anything else. I like that. I obviously don't know a lot about code, so I like that they're keeping it simple, or like anytime they like say anything, they like kind of explain it. Like they're using basic enough terms that I kind of know like what's going on. I know that leaking code isn't good. The first thing I did was plaster a sticky note blackened with permanent marker on my webcam, and then turn down the computer's mic right after. If this was an inside job, I was not about to risk being spied on. I slowly started to check every hardware piece on my office computer. The hard drives were still plugged in. Every cable was connected to the right place. No suspicious disks in the drive. No USB sticks or anything else that wasn't put there by myself. Alright, time to check the software. Logging in seems normal. Code access times, ordinary. The code was accessed at night sometimes, but I knew that was me. I often overstayed in the office to work, at certain days very late even. I did a quick search for bugs that could have caused an opening. Nothing came up. With my computer's hardware and software checked and secured and my fruitless bug search done, I rationalized that it wasn't my skill as a coder that was at fault. If somebody knew the password to my work computer, this computer right in front of me, and the server room of the building, then theoretically, with the right knowledge, they could get their hands on onto the project manually and copy it. How they decrypted it past that point was a different question, so I chose not to think about it for the moment. I peeped above my computer and I saw Mike walking towards my desk. "Ian, you're back," Mike said. He sounded hopeful. "Yeah, I'm back," I said, laying back in my chair comfortably. I immediately spilled all the beans. "Did you get chewed on?" I could feel more questions coming up. I had to cook some lie about what went on because I wasn't supposed to speak to anyone about my talk with the boss. "No," I said, "everything's fine." "Everything is fine?" Mike said doubtfully. "Bauer was furious earlier." "Well, couldn't tell you why," I said. My sarcasm was so carefully veiled that it went over Mike's head. "Did he mention my name?" "No," I said. "Your job is safe. Don't worry about it. Just go back to work." Judging by his look, he might have suspected I wasn't being truthful, but he didn't say much else and left for his desk. "Shoo, peasant. I have a hacker to find." Who was it? The question bothered me ever since I left the boss's office. I put my mind to work. Whoever it was, they must have had considerable computer skills, a good reason to hang around in the building, and possibly knowledge of the work schedule of everyone in the company. That would let them know when it was time to strike, and if it was a clean inside job, they could do it within a time span of a few hours. You know, it could be that Mike was nervous because he thinks Bauer found the code and might be suspicious of him, so maybe he thinks like Ian's hiding from him that they suspect him. It's probably not it, but it's fun to just be absolutely paranoid of everyone, especially in these types of stories. The nostalgic feeling of being back at work I had earlier, before the talk with my boss, had given way to a deep-seated anxiety. That's life, baby. My suspicions first turned to the new guy, Ken. The guy was far from clean. He was using keyloggers and other pre-made hacking software that he downloaded online to hack people he knew, as I found out from his emails. From which emails I inferred he was into the drug trade, judging by online conversation with his buddies, where some bizarre sentences like, "Do you have the cats I asked for?" and "How much for the baskets?" were used all the time, an all-time classic. Maybe they're just a big fan of cat baskets. The coded language he and his lot were using was more transparent than I thought, but ultimately their extra-legal adventures were of no concern of mine, as he himself pointed out earlier. I had a good idea how a person like him could land a job in a place such as this. His dad was a lawyer in a corporate-level law firm, a firm whose interests aligned with those of Daikon Industries, to be sure, and I had no doubt in my mind that the guy was here to freeload to make some fat cash by cutting corners. Wouldn't put it past him to have his way with Daikon Industry products if he got the chance. But did he have the skill to pull it off? Was he competent enough? Smart enough? I mean, if he's always stealing cold, I don't know. No, but my estimation, but I wasn't going to rule him out just like that. There's more than meets the eye, always. Then there was Hope, of the accounting department. I didn't know anybody in the office who could match her professional diligence or her cunning ambition, but she was smart about the latter. I know she coveted the CEO's chair for years now, and that's where it looked like she was headed. She bowed her head and jumped when she was ordered by Mr. Bauer, but she loved to micromanage employees like me, who had nothing to do with her department. I like her outfit. I like her coat. It's possible she has OCD. She had a habit of getting irate if even a small detail of what she's working on is off. But she was timid at heart. She'd back off from open confrontations, as I'd observed when she and her apparently unlikely rival, the janitor, Andre, had an argument about how to mop the floor properly, or something. I didn't really care enough to say and listen. If she was behind the leak, she wasn't doing it for the money. She would do it to get ahead. That's all she cared about, as far as I knew. Andre was the janitor of the building, and had been for at least 3 or 4 years. Ken liked to call him an old geezer. Andre did look old, but he wasn't older than 40. I was about to say, that's still a relatively young-looking guy right there. I hadn't thought much of him before, as his time at work was uneventful as one could imagine. He came by, picked up his tools, cleaned the place up, chatted with other employees during break, and left after his 8 hours were up. But after today's talk with my boss, I had the feeling Andre's ordinary gray eyes knew more than they let on. I bet he has a secret, not necessarily like he's the leaker, but maybe he's connected in some way. Or maybe, you know, one of the side chicks, side woman that Mr. Bauer's seen is his wife. Wouldn't that be that's more important than the leak story, actually. Did he have the skills to pull this off? I had no idea. In truth, I didn't know much of anything about him. All I knew is that he was good at his job, and that was coming from across the pond. And that he was coming from across the pond. Europe, maybe. But what if it was Mike? Just the thought made my chest swell with stress. Mike was more capable to do something like this than any of the others I'd considered so far. He was a knowledgeable coder. He knew my work schedule. He knew his way around the server room. And he had a hand in the encryption, which would mean he had a head start on decrypting the thing. Those facts alone would not convince me that he was worthy of suspicion. Every coder in this office had the aforementioned qualities and abilities. But Mike stood out from the rest. It's because he looked like Daru. It wasn't common knowledge around the office, more like a rumor, that Mike had hacked a Daikon before he was hired. In fact, that was the reason he was hired to begin with. Seems legit. It was a classic story in our field of work. Skilled coders probing for exploits and holes in the code of a company's website or product, then sending the owners their findings for a reward, or in this case, a promotion in the company for their useful skills. I knew the truth from one of Mike's work emails that I'd read when I got access to his messages. In Bauer's words when talking to Mike, he hadn't forgotten the liberties you took before joining. What I didn't know about this little story is what it was exactly Mike had hacked. Was it my code? There was a good chance it was, and that frightened me. Or it wasn't Mike at all, or any of the people that I mentioned, and it was one of the others who worked in this office. Imagine if it's someone without a character sprite. There were people with daily access in this building who I'd never interacted with. That was going to complicate my search tenfold. My thoughts were scattered all over the place. Writing down what made me suspicious about each of these people would help, but doing so would be dangerous. What if someone saw the writings, or saw me writing them? So you have a spare porn drawing, and if someone sees you quickly switch to the porn drawing, then they'll look away because they're too embarrassed. I don't do that. I just let my porn... I'm just kidding. I was going to say I just let my porn drawings hang proud, but no. I had to return home, collect my thoughts, and take care that I stored copies of the work logs at home. I glanced at my watch to see if it was past 3. Time flew by and I didn't even know how. Usually I'd be starving by this hour, but I didn't feel like having anything to eat after today's events. I just resolved to go home as quick as possible. I closed the door behind me as I rushed into my apartment, panting. I locked twice and removed my suit's jacket and pants so fast that I practically jumped out of them. There could be a bug in my clothes. All of my clothes went flying at my bed, and even though I was in a hurry, I stopped to marvel at how messy and dirty the place where I lived was. Yeah, it's not the best, man, but you get a good dust in, and overall you have a nice little place that just looks like a slightly bigger prison cell. Dust had turned to dirt on the floor over the days, weeks, and months. The walls were stained from leaky pipes, the dishes had been left untouched in the sink for weeks on end. The room's air was hot like lava, and the only thing resembling air conditioning barely worked, not even when I first rented the place. A fan in the ducts must have broken. It always produced this distracting sound when it was on, but I couldn't be bothered to talk to the landlord to fix it. The landlord's the leak. The only thing that was pristine and in perfect condition was my computer and its screens. Turned on all day, every day. I was lousy on keeping up with cleaning the apartment, with the sole exception being this rig. Someone might be wondering why I lived in such an apartment when at the same time I worked at a high-profile company like Daikon Industries. A top-class coder was always well paid. The truth was as simple as anyone's guess, for financial reasons. Tri-State was one of the most expensive places to live in on Earth. Money was always tight. It's the Boston of the coding world. I really did yearn to live in a better place, more befitting of my income, but it was simply infeasible. My salary was generous, but even so, most of it went towards helping with family, and I wouldn't have it any other way. I'm a family man. It was time to sit on the uncomfortable chair that I'd had to learn to be comfortable in, and perform the exact same safety check that I'd done in my work computer at the office. Alright everyone, I think I'm going to stop today's video walkthrough here. So far, I'm really digging the visual novel. I think the setup's really interesting. Things seem to be just getting, really starting with all the paranoia and suspicion. Maybe in the next episode we'll get to meet his sister, get some more emotional character development on his end, but I'm really looking forward to see what else this demo has to offer. So far I'm really digging the visual novel, and I'd say there's a 99.999997 chance that I'm going to donate to this Kickstarter. Like I said before, I will link down to the website of the game the trailer for the game, the Kickstarter, and maybe I'll even throw in Dragonfire Studios Twitter too, because so far I'm really digging it. I want this to get a lot of attention. I want the Kickstarter to reach its goal. I just want it to succeed because this looks really interesting so far, and I love these types of stories, and I just want to see it do good. So yeah, thank you everyone for watching. I hope you enjoyed this Let's Play. I hope I wasn't boring or annoying. If so, just let me know. I'll cry about it, then get right back to it the next day. Until the next video, guys, thank you everyone so much for watching, and see you guys in the next video.